webinar on NSDL operations circular on DMAT debit and pledge instructions and block mechanism. The aim of the session is to have this brief insights and awareness on the process involved in transaction through DDPI and the relevance and its impact on the current block mechanism. We, to begin with, extend our sincere gratitude to Team NSDL, to Mr. Prashant Vagal, Executive VP NSDL, for his time, to his team, Mr. Yogesh Parve, Assistant Vice President, and Mr. Parag Joshi, Vice President NSDL. On that note, I would request Mr. Prashant Vagal to present the keynote address, please. Prashantji, over to you.
Thank you, Vispi, and good evening, everyone. We take this opportunity to thank BBF for making this forum available for us to have an interaction with the broker community. I'm sure you all are aware that next week we have a deadline about implementation of a DDPI. DDPI is one of the transformation phase, and in fact, I'm very happy to say that we were struggling with the SEBI for almost more than 3 years to implement the DMAT mandate. Today, the era is of the digital world. Everything is happening digitally, and so in the process of online account opening, one of the hurdle was how to take the power of attorney. Though there was an option like EDIS and something like that, but it was not in substitution to what the power of attorney privilege was offered. And so considering the limitations of the government notification, whereby the POA cannot be digitalized because of the issues which government has observed, the DMAT mandate was a solution. That is what NSDL was looking for. And it has come into the effect in the form of DDPI. So the DDPI now is a reality, and we have to see how it can be used further. So as a part of this today's presentation, we will try to highlight many more things, whereby you can get an opportunity to know what is the scope of this DDPI. There are some of the gray areas, like whether the DDPI can be used for MF redemption, whether it can be used for tender offer, whether it can be used for MTF pledges. Some of the points, yes, we have a clarity, which our team will give it to you. Some of the points, still the discussion is going on since morning, every day, till evening. We are talking to SEBI. Some of the points we are clarifying, and we are also keeping our hopes live that by 30th, because the 31st August is a holiday, we should get some clarity from the SEBI. But if not, then what else? What is the backup plan? So that also the team will try to highlight to all of you. So basically, the DDPI will make a transformation where EDIS is a process where every time OTP, TPIN is required. If the volumes are high, if the markets are in the opposite direction, then the delay in the OTP, delay in resetting the TPIN may take a time. But the DDPI will take care of all these issues, and so it is in the interest of investors, it is in the interest of the broker. And so that's the reason now the time what we are going to have for the next half an hour or more, we will try to give you the benefit of how it can be taken forward. Similarly, there is a mandatory block, which is more towards the compliance. But if you look at the investor, it is more user-friendly, because now for the dividend distribution tax, they don't depend on the broker. And securities will remain a block in a client account till the pay-in deadline. And so the corporate benefits like a bonus, split, dividend, all will be made available into their beneficiary account, and they don't have to do the follow-up with a broker. Definitely, the regulator has a piece of comfort that securities will not move from the client account till the time obligation matching is done. And so it is a win-win for all the communities, and more importantly for SEBI, where they will find the compliance and regulations are being implemented in the effective manner. And so the today's journey, what we are going to have is a educational drive, what both the NSDL teams, technology and business is going to demonstrate to you, so that you will get more clarity that how this process are going to implement it. Mandatory block, still there is a time available. November is a deadline, but definitely the DDPI, that privilege is not here. So I will request more focus can be given by DDPI. Definitely mandatory block, time is available. We can come back again, not once, more time, and give more clarity to you. So without now spending much of your time, I will request Yogesh Parve to take care from now on. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant sir, for such a wonderful introductory remark, wherein you have given the insights on the implementation of a DDPI and block mechanism. We again, as an NSDL team, thanks BBF to making this forum available to us to put forward our thoughts in respect of implementation of DDP and block mechanism with our brokers and depository participants. So now, as we have the agenda in front of us, like DDP and block mechanism, we have jotted some important points in the way of a presentation, which we would like to cover in next 15 to 20 minutes. So we would like to cover all the integrities and operating guidelines in respect of implementation of a DDPA as well as the block mechanism. What are the system changes that we are emphasizing in respect of implementation of a DDPA and block mechanism, and how to seamlessly move towards the implementation of this guidelines issued by SEBI. So I'll just switch on to my presentation slides so we can discuss the points which we are targeting to cover under today's PPT. So we all are aware that SEBI has issued the circular in the month of April 2020, wherein they have given us the guideline in respect of demat debit and pledge instruction, that is a DDPI, for transfer of securities towards settlement obligation and pledging and repledging of security. Now in the month of June, dated June 30, 2020, SEBI has issued another circular wherein they have given us some extra time for the implementation of DDPI guidelines. And now the new deadline is the 31st August, and the implementation of DDPI circular will be effective from the September 1, 2020. So we will try to touch upon certain important factors of the DDPI guidelines issued by SEBI, wherein SEBI stated that a separate document of a DDPI is required to be obtained, and wherein they have prescribed the format as a part of Annexure A of the SEBI circular dated April 4. Then SEBI circular speaks about the explicit consent required from client, wherein client shall explicitly agree to authorize the broker and depository participant in respect of their BO account for the limited purpose of meeting pay-in obligation and settlement of trades executed by them. Then DDPI shall serve the same purpose of POA and significantly mitigating the risk of misusing the power of attorney. As we already discussed, this DDPA guidelines are going to be rolled out effective from September 1, 2020. To be continuing with the important background of SEBI circular, wherein SEBI has prescribed two clauses like 1.2.1 and 1.2.2, which speak about the transfer of securities held in the beneficiary owner account of the client toward the stock exchange related deliveries, settlement obligation arising out of trades executed by such a client on the stock exchange through the say stockbrokers. So what SEBI is stating in this particular clause is that once we implemented the DDPA related changes, then for execution of any settlement related transfer which are pertaining to the settlement obligation arising out of trade executed on the stock exchange platform, so those transactions are required to be executed using the DDPI. The second point covers the pledging and repledging of a securities in favor of a trading member, clearing member, for the purpose of meeting the margin requirement of the client in connection with the trade executed by such client on the stock exchange platform. Again, SEBI is saying that the pledging and repledging of securities in favor of a TM and CM shall be executed only by the way of a DDPI after the implementation of a DDPI guideline. So for a limited purpose, these two clauses will be covered under DDPI effective from 1st September 2020. Now, in this slide, we'll try to cover up certain operating guidelines in respect of DDPI. So today also, we have multiple options through which the client can execute or submit a transaction like physical DS or electronic DS or digital platform made available by the depository. And one more option will be added, that is a DDPI. Today, majority of the transactions are executed on the basis of power of attorney. So similarly, DDPI is the option to execute the transaction on behalf of the client, wherein the client has given the DDPI to the broker. So POA not to be used for clauses 1.2.1 and 1.2.2 after implementation of a DDPI SEBI circular. So we had a brief discussion on this point in the previous slide. DDPI is a substitute of POA and will be used for the same purpose as a POA. Yeah, to certain extent, POA is a substitute, DDPI is a substitute of POA for these two clauses mentioned in SEBI circular under 1.2.1 and 1.2.2, that is meeting the settlement obligation and pledging and repledging of security. So DDPI will work as a replacement of a power of attorney in respect of aforesaid two clauses. The DDPI shall be a voluntary document. It is optional and in additional needs to be maintained as additional rights and obligations. So this is the one of the important point that has been mentioned in the SEBI circular, which states that DDPI is a voluntary document. The DDPI shall be executed only if the client provides the explicit consent. So we discussed this point wherein it has been stated that explicit consent is required to be given by the client so that the DDPI can be executed by the broker. The DDPI shall also be adequately stamped. So we previously also talked about this point. Yes, the DDPI is required to be adequately stamped as guided by SEBI circular. So how the DDPI can be signed by the client? So there are multiple modes through which the DDPI can be submitted by the client. The client can digitally sign the DDPI, or the e-sign can be fixed while submission of a DDPI, or the third option is that the by physically signing, the client can submit the DDPI. To continue with some operating guidelines, post implementation of a SEBI circular dated April 4, the POA no longer be executed for the conditions specified under paragraph 1.2.1 and 1.2.2, which we already discussed, wherein we are stating that for only these two purposes, the DDPI is required to be used after the implementation of a DDPI guideline. And on the similar lines, the POA shall not be used for these two type of a transaction. The two conditions as specified in paragraph 1.2.1 and 1.2.2 shall be made part of a separate document, which we already discussed, that has been specified as an Annexure A of a SEBI circular. The existing POAs given prior to the implementation of a SEBI circular dated April 4 will continue to remain valid till the client revokes the same. So simply speaking, the existing POA registered in the client account shall continue for future also till the time the client gives the explicit consent for revoking those POA from their client account. After implementation of a DDPI circular, if client revokes the existing POA and provide a DDPI to the broker, then all transactions mentioned under clauses 1.2.1 and 1.2.2 of the SEBI circular shall be processed using DDPI only. So for example, if the client is revoking the POA after the implementation of a DDPI guideline, and he has given the DDPI to the broker. So after the implementation of a DDPI guideline, mandatorily these transactions covered under clauses 1.2.1 and 1.2.2 shall be executed using DDPI only. So for execution of these two transfers, the POA shall not be used after 1st September in respect of newly open account or wherever the DDPI is being assigned after the implementation of a DDPI guide. So now coming back to the whatever the proposed changes which we are envisaging in respect of an NSDL depository system. So we have bifurcated these changes in three major heads. One is a DPM system, wherein we are saying that in respect of account transfer and IDT, we are envisaging certain changes in respect of DIS issued to flag, and the DDPI ID is being seeked as a mandatory detail in respect of account transfer and IDT module. But frankly speaking, we have not added any additional column in the file format, but we have tried to use existing fields, and by adding the new static codes, we try to minimize the changes at the broker and depository participant end. Then coming to the electronic platform in respect of SPICE instruction, in respect of a client to CM instruction based on a DDPI. So there is currently a process of a client registration which is being followed under POA, that same process will be followed for DDPI as well. So which will be called as the client registration process, wherein the broker can upload the list of clients with a DDPI ID, and the depository participant will approve it. And on the basis of the linkages uploaded by the broker, the validation will be executed at the time of processing the instruction based on a DDPI through SPICE functionality. So on this particular point, it is a totally on the similar lines of a power of attorney, how the registration is being done today in respect of client and POA mapping. Similarly, client and DDPI registration process will follow. And similar to that, the validation of a client and DDPI ID will be done in the SPICE and DM system of a NSDL. Changes in a margin pledge replace the instruction based on a DDPI. So what we are saying today, we have given a functionality wherein the brokers can upload the margin pledge instruction on the basis of power of attorney. Similarly, the brokers can upload the margin pledge file based on the DDPI given to them by the client. So only the change is that we have added one flag called D for indicating whether this transaction has been executed based on the DDPI. And in respect of a POID column, the additional DDPI ID field which we have added, so that by using the same field, the DDPI and ID can be passed in that particular field. The necessary validation for processing the margin pledge instruction will be carried out, which are same as power of attorney on the basis of client and DDPI mapping. The certain validation in respect of processing the margin pledge instruction will be executed. Now we will go into more detail in respect of a system changes which we have carried out in respect of implementation of a DDPI guideline. So now on this particular slide, we are talking about the changes which we have carried out in respect of the local DPM system. So first point is that the creation of a DDPI signatory. Today, we all are aware about the creation of a POA, how the POA module is being working. So there we are, creating the POA signatory first. Then we are creating a corporate POID, and that POID is being mapped to the demat account at the time of account opening or through a client modification file upload. So similarly, the process remains same for DDPI also, and that DDPI creation modification is being all covered under POA module. So on the similar line, wherever we capture the POA signatory, similarly, we can create a DDPI signatory. For example, ABC is the broker wherein two signatories are available. In that case, I will register two signatories separately by mentioning the mandatory details of those signatories like name, the signatory details, the expiry date, and all. And by doing the necessary maker checker entry, I will be creating the DDPI signatories first. Then by combining those two signatories, I will be creating a DDPI ID. It is the same like a corporate POID. And that corporate POID will be mapped to the client through client creation or client modification. But before, at the time of a creation of a DDPI ID, there is a provision to map the target demat accounts of TM and CM. So that will be used for additional validation at the NSDL depository system for the purpose of whenever the securities are getting debited from the client account and being credited to the CM account. So in that case, we will be cross-verifying a target account detail captured in the DDPI module. Now, transaction processing in respect of account transfer and interdepository transfer. So as I already said, we have tried to use our existing file format by not making many changes in the file structure, by not details of and the DDPI ID. Two details will be mandatorily provided for identification and necessary in NSDL system. So what we are saying that a field called DIS issue to. So in that case, whenever transactions are executed by the broker in respect of a DDPI, while processing such instruction, this DIS issued to field needs to be provided with the static value as a 3, which is for DIS issued to DDPI. Whenever the DIS issued to DDPI is being provided in the transaction, at that time, DDPI ID is required to be provided mandatorily in the transaction processing of account transfer and inter-depository transfer. So these are the, minimum changes that we have envisaged in respect of a transaction processing. The details of client account and DDPI mapping will be checked, matched at the time of a processing DDPI based instruction. So whenever we are processing the DDPI based instruction, at that time we will be checking the client and DDPI mapping. Details of target demat account of a TMCM will be validated while execution of a DDPI based instruction. This point we have already covered, wherein we are saying that at the time of a registration of a DDPI ID, there is a provision to capture the target demat accounts of TM and CM, so which we will be validating at the time of an instruction processing based on a DDPI. Post successful validation, as mentioned above, the DDPI instruction will be processed as per the existing block mechanism. So what we are saying that once the all the necessary validations are passed, then that particular instruction will be taken for the processing under block mechanism, wherein the instructions securities will be blocked in the client account till the pay-in date, and on the pay-in date, the securities will be moved from client account to CM pool account, and from CM pool to CM delivery account, and from CM delivery to CC settlement account for pay-in purpose. And this will be done by the NSDL by generating the special delivery out orders automatically. The brokers or depository participant are not required to execute any special or separate instruction for that purpose. All DDPI instruction, that is in a technical terms 904 and 925, will be by default considered for early paying. So all the instruction process based on the DDPI will be considered for EPI. The unique UCC detail will be derived from UCC master as provided by the stock exchanges and provided to CC for providing the EPI benefit. Today also, in respect of a block mechanism, yes, it is an optional thing today, but while processing the instruction through block mechanism, we are deriving the unique UCC detail from the UCC database maintained at NSDL on the basis of the detail provided by the stock exchanges. And such UCC details like TMID, UCC ID, exchange ID, we are providing to the clearing corporation in the EPI file for providing the client level EPI benefit to the client. So that will be considered for DDPI based transaction also. We are not mandating DPs or brokers or client to provide the UCC detail as of now, but for implementation of a block mechanism, which we are targeting for a 14 November thing. So at that time, the UCC detail will be made mandatory, and separate communication will be sent to the brokers and depository participants whenever we are planning to do so. The UCC detail will be optional in respect of account transfer and IDT for implementation of a DDPI functionality. So for DDPI based transaction, we are not seeking UCC detail from the broker or DP. We will be deriving those details from our database of UCC. Then we are now speaking about the transaction processing through SPICE functionality and margin pledge functionality. The TMCM user will upload the list of clients who are given the DDPI to them, and participant will authorize the same as a client DDPI mapping for SPICE functionality. In the previous slide also we discussed this point. This is similar as a registering a client on a SPICE functionality through power of attorney. So similar file format is being used for mapping the client and DDPI under SPICE functionality. The TMCM user will upload the batch file processing client to CM transaction based on a DDPI given by the client to them by mentioning the DDPI ID in the said batch file. So today, brokers are using the SPICE functionality for debiting the client account and crediting the CM pool account. Similarly, by using the DDPI functionality, the broker can upload the SPICE file for doing the client to CM transfer of security. Margin pledge initiation. Today, POA based margin pledge initiation is provided to the broker. Today, brokers are making use of that functionality. So similar functionality is extended for DDPI as well, wherein the DDPI ID will be mentioned in the batch file upload, and by using that DDPI ID, the broker can upload the margin pledge initiation. The other processes for processing the SPICE and margin pledge initiation file upload remain unchanged. There is no change in the SPICE or margin pledge functionality as such. So to continue with the transaction processing thing, we have tried to give more focus on the movement of the securities, how the securities will be blocked in the client account, how the securities will be moved, how the obligation will be matched with the obligation. So that points we have tried to cover under this particular slide. So this slide speaks about securities to be transferred from client account to TM account. Okay, but in respect of the block mechanism, the securities will be blocked in the client account till the pay-in date. Then on the T date, the CC will upload the obligation detail, client-wise net obligation arising from the trade executed on the exchange as provided by the CC to depositories for each settlement date. So today also clearing corporations are uploading the obligation detail on a NSDL platform on a daily basis on a T day around 7 to 7:30 in the evening. So that same will continue. CCs will upload the obligation detail on a NSDL platform, which will be used by NSDL for matching with the transaction executed in the DPM system. For DDPI-based transaction, block mechanism process will be followed, wherein securities will be blocked in the client account till matching with the obligation received from CC. Once the matching is done on a paying date, securities will be transferred from CM pool. From CM pool, it will be transferred to CM delivery account as a part of a special delivery out instruction, and subsequently to the CC settlement account automatically. So these all status transition from pool account to delivery account and from delivery account to the CC settlement account will be done automatically by NSDL. There is no separate instruction is required from broker's end. So that is a very important point, wherein we are saying that with the virtue of only single instruction for DDPI, the NSDL will take care of raising all the instruction in respect of pool to delivery and from delivery to CC settlement account for paying purpose. Every instruction executed by DDPI shall be considered for EPI and shall be sent to the CC for API benefit. Remaining process to be same as a block mechanism. So today, once we identify this instruction is based on the DDPI, and we are through with the our internal validation in respect of a client and DDPI ID mapping, then we will be considering those instructions for DDPI blocking, and every instruction will be considered for EPI, and that will be shared with the CCs for giving the EPI benefit. Today, at the interval of every 10 minutes, we are sharing the EPI details to the clearing corporation for providing the client level EPI benefit. So that will be continue in respect of a DDPI implementation as well. So we have covered, certain what you call the guidelines of the SEBI circular, the operating guidelines issued by NSDL, the proposed system changes which we are emphasizing in respect of local DPM, eDPM, electronic platform, e-services, and margin pledge system. And we have tried to highlight some of the advantages which we are trying to give to the market as a industry in respect of automatically generating the DO orders and blocking the securities in the client account, so that the impact of all the corporate action will be given to the client directly, and there will be no issues in respect of a corporate action benefit distribution by the broker. So we have discussed certain benefits also in respect of a DDPI blocking. Now, before going to the block mechanism, I would like to touch upon certain points. Prashant sir also touch base a few points in respect of the transactions which are currently not being covered under DDPI. So what are those transactions which we are speaking about? So first and foremost is a mutual fund redemption transaction. The second is a tender offer related transaction. So I'll just give you the reference of some of the SEBI circular in respect of POA regulation. SEBI has issued two circulars in the month of April 2010 and August 2010, wherein they have specifically mentioned that these two type of a transaction, specifically for MF redemption and a tender offer, these both transactions are allowed on the basis of a power of attorney. Now, when we are saying that DDPI will be working as a replacement of a power of attorney to some extent, So in that case, we are hopeful that this two transaction will be covered under DDPI. So we have represented the matter to SEBI, and on a daily basis we are having a discussion with SEBI officials, and we are trying to convince them that these two transactions shall be covered under DDPI. We are hopeful that we will be getting some clarity from the SEBI officials before the implementation of a DDPI guideline, that is before 31st August. We are also rigorously following with the SEBI officials so that we will get clarity on these 2 points, and necessary operating guidelines can be issued to our DPs and brokers so that this two type of a transaction will get covered under DDPI. Third transaction is a margin trading funding. When we discuss this particular point with the SEBI officials, highlighted the point stating that when the margin pledge circular has been issued, at that time there is a guidelines in respect of a margin trading funding pledging also, but there is no specific mention about whether that type of a transaction can be executed using DDPI POA module. So now why such kind of queries are being highlighted or raised in respect of execution of a MTF transaction based on a DDPI? If the brokers are having a standard practice of raising or execution or submission of a MTF transaction based on a POA, then that can such kind of a MTF pledges can be raised or submitted on the basis of a DDPI as well. But we have sought the clarification from SEBI in respect of MTF pledges also. So let's see, we are hopeful on this point also. Otherwise, NSDL will certainly issue operating guidelines which will cover the MTF related point as well, which will give the edge to the broker for execution of a MTF related pledges based on a DDPI. The fourth point basically is related to the implementation of DDPI guidelines. So as you are aware, generally we issue or implement such type of a critical releases on a weekends, on a rather Friday or day before the bank holiday. But this time, this release date is the 31st August, and there is no any chances of extension further. So we will be releasing this particular feature at the EOD of the 31st August to all the depository participants and brokers through our EDPM system and our e-services platform. So before I move to the block mechanism, I would like to request Parag if he wanted to add something in respect of a implementation of a DDPI guidelines in respect of a technical changes or file format related changes.
Yes, thank you, Yogesh. So the file format changes, as you mentioned correctly, are only the value changes in the formats, and those have been communicated with the participants. So only thing I would like to mention is even in case of electronic DIS, the DIS details which were earlier not mandatory, now the DDPI ID field will become mandatory. That is the change, and the participants are requested to and the brokers are requested to make note of the same. Rest, I believe, Yogesh, we have covered everything as a part of the format, so we can move ahead. Hello.
Yes, yes, Yogesh.
Parag. So I will continue with the block mechanism PPT. Vispi, my screen is visible?
Yes, it's perfect. Yes.
Okay. So, this is the right forum wherein we are connecting with the brokers and depository participants, so that as an NSDL team, we thought that we will cover up certain important point in respect of a block mechanism guidelines as well. So SEBI has recently issued a circular in this particular month, wherein SEBI is intending to make the block mechanism as a mandatory effective from 14 November. So we thought it is the right opportunity so that we can, touch upon certain important points of SEBI guidelines and what are the changes that we are envisaging in respect of the processing the instruction based on a block mechanism. So as we already discussed, SEBI has issued the circular dated August 18, wherein SEBI has uh, said that the facility of a block mechanism shall be made mandatory for all early paying transactions effective from November 14, 2020. But before that, SEBI had issued one circular dated July 16, 2021 in respect of implementation of a block mechanism. So today also this block mechanism is up and running. So there are certain brokers and depository participants who are processing the instruction through block mechanism, wherein securities are getting blocked in the client account and the obligation matching is being done on the daily basis. And in respect of a match transaction, the pay-in is happening on a T+2 day or T+1 day as per the pay-in mechanism. And for in respect of unmatched cases, the securities are being made free in the client account on the T day itself. So what are the important points which SEBI is, speaking about in those circulars? For sale transactions, share will be blocked in the demat account of the client in favor of a CC. So whenever the, pain related, early pain related transactions will be executed, by default, the shares will be blocked in the client account in favor of a clearing corporation. So those shares will be marked for EPI and those will be blocked in the client account till the paying date. If sale transaction is not executed, shares shall continue to remain in the client demat account and will be unblocked at the end of the day. So today also we are following this practice wherein in the respect of unmatched cases, the security block is being removed and the securities are being credited in the client free balance. Mechanism will do away with the movement of a share from the client's demat account for early paying and back to the client demat account if trade is not executed. So that is the beauty of a block mechanism wherein we are saying that the actual transfer of shares from client account to for a paying purpose, and if the trade is not executed, again giving back those securities to the client account. So this movement of share will be eliminated. As we already discussed, this changes SEBI is intending to implement effective from 14 November 2020 as a mandatory feature. 2022, sorry. Blocking of securities at a client account for a market transaction. So this point we have already discussed. For all early paying transactions, the securities will be blocked account. SEBI is currently discussing with all the market infrastructure agencies wherein they are planning to bring in block mechanism for all paying related transfers, whether it is the early paying transaction or non-early paying transaction. So SEBI is going to issue a separate circular in respect of a paying validation in respect of other than early paying transaction as well. Block implemented for client to CM related transfers. That means all market transfers will be covered till paying date. So this block in the client account will remain till the paying date, and on the paying date, the securities will be moved from client account to CC settlement account for paying purpose. Client to CM related transactions to be matched with the client level net delivery obligation from the CC. As we already discussed, today also CCs are uploading the obligation detail on NSDL platform on a daily basis, and that will be used for matching with the transaction processing. Early paying benefit at a client level. We already discussed that at NSDL, we provide the EPI details to CC at a regular interval of 10 minutes. So that will continue whenever the transactions are executed. Every 10 minutes, the EPI details will be shared with the clearing corporation for providing the necessary EPI benefit at a client level. No need of execution of IDO, irreversible delivery out in the CM pool account related transaction. It is one of the advantages wherein brokers are not required to execute a separate IDO order for getting the EPI benefit, because with the block mechanism instruction, NSDL is forwarding those details to the CC for giving the early paying benefit, and on the settlement date, the securities will be directly given to the CC settlement account for paying purpose. Currently, this facility is up and running, but as an optional functionality, but same will be made mandatory effective from 14 November 2022. So this is a pictorial, representation how the movement of securities will happen in respect of a block mechanism, how the securities will be blocked in the client account, how the matching will be done with the obligation received from CC, how the internal transfers of securities will happen from CM account to CM pool to CM delivery, and from CM delivery to CC settlement account on pay-in date. So as this diagram represents, the first point speaks about the blocking of the securities in a client account in respect of the account transfer and IDT instruction initiated with the transaction indicator as a 01. Then in the second point, UCC TM ID and exchange ID will be provided to CC along with the quantity, ISIN and other detail for API purpose. CC obligation upload by the CC will upload the obligation file and CC obligation to be matched with the account transfer and IDT instruction. On a successful matching, the securities will remain in the client block account and transfer to CM pool account on the pay-in date. Auto transfer of securities from CM pool to CM delivery account. On a T day or T+1 day EOD, unmatched instruction will be reversed to the free balance of the client. On BOD of the settlement date, the securities will be debited from DO account and credited to the CC settlement account for pay-in purpose. So through this pictorial representation, we have tried to demonstrate how the movement of securities will be done from client account to the CC settlement account from T date to the pay-in date. As we already discussed today also, block mechanism system is up and running and many brokers are using the block mechanism functionality. But what is the difference that we are envisaging in respect of the block mechanism transaction processing in the NSDL DPM system is that today we are deriving the UCC details from the UCC database available with the NSDL, which is being built based on the information provided by the stock exchanges on a daily basis. So going forward, when we are planning to implement the block mechanism as a mandatory functionality effective from 14 November 2020, at that time we are intending to seek the UCC detail from the client, broker, and depository participant. So what details, additional detail we are seeking from the broker or DP entities is client UCC, TM ID, stock exchange ID, and segment ID. These four fields which we are mandatory will be seeking from the broker or the DPs in their file upload or through screen-based instruction processing. Then there is existing flag which is available, block with early pay-in flag. That same flag will be used for executing the mandatory block. But the only difference is that today that flag is optional. But in respect of a mandatory block mechanism, the majority of the cases, the value has to be provided as a 1, wherein the particular instruction will be marked as a mandatory block with EPI functionality. There are certain exemptions wherein we are working with a SEBI official in respect of a block mechanism also, wherein tender offer, custodian client instructions or mutual fund related instructions shall be exempted from the mandatory block. That is our assumption, and we have represented the same to SEBI. So we are awaiting the clarification from SEBI. So that's the reason we have made a provision in our file format so that the zero value or space value can be provided by the broker or DP. So that will be considered as an exempted transaction, which will not be considered for a mandatory block mechanism. So what are the benefits which we are looking towards the implementation of a mandatory block? Securities will be blocked in the client account till pay-in date. So that will eliminate the risk of a misuse of client securities, because till pay-in date, the securities will be lying in the client block account. So there will be no chances of a misuse of a client security. Block is created on the basis of a client UCC. Broker are not required to send a separate EPI details to CC, as EPI details are being shared with the CC by NSDL. We already discussed this point wherein we talked about that as a process. NSDL is sharing the EPI details to CCs at the interval of every 10 minutes. So there is no requirement of a broker to provide this EPI details separate to the clearing corporation. Prashant sir also, speak about the corporate action benefit. All the corporate action benefit like dividend, bonus, split, etc. are received by the client account because the securities will be blocked in the client account till the paying date. So all the corporate action benefit will be given in the client account itself. No need for brokers to reconcile corporate action benefit in case wherein the security is held in the CM pool account on a record date. So there are issues, prevailing issues in respect of the securities lying in the CM pool account, and if there are a corporate action happening on those securities, then there is a dividend distribution tax which is applicable for such kind of corporate action benefit, and that is causing certain issues in respect of distribution of the corporate action benefit. But in respect of mandatory block mechanism, securities will be lying in the block account of a client, so that all the requisite corporate action benefit will be directly provided to the client. So that will solve majority of the issues of the broker in respect of a corporate action benefit distribution. Securities are debited only upon successful validation with a sale obligation received from CC. So this point speak about the assurity that once the obligation is matched, then only the securities will be debited from the client account. And if the obligation is not matched, the securities will be given back to the client as a free balance. Early payment instruction for block to be submitted through the throughout the day instead of a specified time. For example, at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whatever is the time, the block mechanism instruction can be processed, and with the gap of a 10 minutes, the early paying benefit can be given to the client, because the depository will be sharing, NSDL will be sharing the EPI benefits to the clearing corporation at a regular interval of a 10 minutes. So there are no limitation in respect of a specific time for submission of a EPI instruction. The EPI instruction can be submitted throughout a day. Reduction of activities at a DP's broker end, as there is no need of execution of a IDO, upload of a UCC client-wise detail to CC collateral system separately. So this point we have already discussed, wherein we are saying that the NSDL will be carrying out the necessary transaction in respect of IDO and sharing the EPI details to the clearing corporation along with the UCC detail. So brokers are not required to execute IDO order separately, and are not rather required to upload the UCC wise client details on the CC's collateral system. So that will be a operational convenience for the broker. So we wanted to highlight some of the points which are really important for implementation of a mandatory block instruction. Client to submit instruction in a physical mode or electronic mode through NSDL e-services facility. Broker can initiate the block instruction on the basis of POA or DDPI given by the client. So what we are saying that there are various modes available for submission of an instruction today, like physical mode, electronic mode, or the instruction uploaded by broker by the virtue of POA or DDPI. So that all modes are going to be continued in respect of a submission of a block related instruction. EPI instruction for block to be submitted throughout the day instead of a specified time. So this point we covered under last slide. We spoke about the convenience of having the EPI execution throughout a day instead of having a specified time limit. Partial pay-in of to continue for available balances if sufficient balance is not available, subject to matching with the client level net obligation. So there will be option of a partial pay-in. For example, there is a obligation of 100 quantity, and Yogesh Parve is executing 4 separate instructions for 25 quantity. So each instruction will be processed based on the matching with the client level net obligation, because the total net obligation uploaded by clearing corporation is for 100 quantity, and I am executing a separate instructions to the extent of 100 quantity. So all the partial pay-in will be triggered based on the matching done with the obligation detail. For availing the early payment benefit, ensure securities are available to the extent of an instruction submitting. So we are, asking to maintain a sufficient balance in a demat account so that you will get the early payment benefit to the extent of the instruction submitted. Matching of a CC obligation with the client block securities at EOD of a T day or a T plus 1 day based on the receipt of a full obligation. Today, CCs are mainly uploading the obligation on a T day itself, wherein the matching is carried out in the NSDL system on a T day itself. And in case of unmatched or unmatched cases, the securities are given back to the client account as a free balance. In case of unmatched instruction which are not cancelled by CC, NSDL will cancel such instruction and securities will be reversed to the client free balance. So this point basically speak about two factors. One is the cancellation by clearing corporation, because early payment details are being forwarded to the CCs by NSDL or at a regular interval. So for providing the EPI benefit, today clearing corporations are also carrying out the necessary matching at their end, and they are also cancelling the instruction if the matching obligation is not found. In cases these are very rare cases wherein the cancellation is not being executed by the CCs. So in that case, NSDL is executing such cancellation in respect of unmatched instruction, and the securities are being reversed to the client free balance. The future dated orders, block mechanism based account transfer and IDT instruction will be matched against the obligation on execution date. So future dated orders can be placed using the block mechanism, and the actual execution will be based on the obligation matching on the execution date. So that's it from my side. I have tried to cover some important factors in respect of DDPA implementation and block mechanism. I have tried to give justice to all the points which has been mentioned, covered under SEBI circulars and NSDL circulars as a way of operating guidelines. So definitely we will be happy to answer to your further queries. So
Sure. Thank you, Yogesh, for this elaborate presentation and inputs. It was indeed very helpful in terms of nitty-gritty, especially the block mechanism. Thank you, Parag, for your inputs also. Now I would request the members to kindly raise their virtual hands, and accordingly we'll take you one by one, and you can ask your questions, please. So members, please, if you can. Parag, Yogesh, we are starting the Q&A, sir. Santosh Kumar ji, your question, please.
Sure.
संतोष जी आपका एको आ रहा है.
हेलो.
हाँ जी. संतोष जी आपका एको आ रहा है, ऑडियो का कुछ करिए प्लीज.
So Vispi, if we have the questions registered on the chat box or somewhere, so we can take up those questions at least so that we can cover.
Sure. So what we'll do is now, which we'll one by one we'll start. So there are few hands which are already raised, so we can take there, and there are sometimes duplications also. So we will take it as per the flow. Sure. So in the chat box, there is one is for NI clients. Do we collect DDPI or NPOA from 1st September onwards?
So there is no separate guidelines in respect of resident clients or NRI. So whatever the guidelines is applicable for the normal BO account, so that will be applicable for NRI clients also. So after the implementation of a DDPI guideline for executing the two clauses like pay-in validation, pay-in obligation related transactions and margin pledge repledge related transactions, both are required to be executed using the DDPI functionality.
What will be the effect on EMF client after DDPI is implemented?
So what is the EMF, Vispi?
What will be the effect on EMF client after DDPI is implemented?
Yeah, so I am asking about EMF client. I am not clear on that particular thing. So can anyone elaborate on that? What is the EMF client?
We will ask somebody, because this is a question being posed. Let's see later. Is stamping or franking required for DDPI?
Yes, the stamping is required. The SEBI circular clearly states that the adequately stamping is required in respect of a DDPI.
Please confirm DDPI and block mechanism is applicable to custodians.
So we have taken up this point with the SEBI officials. So SEBI officials are with the opinion that this guidelines is being issued for stockbrokers and depository participant of stockbrokers, but still we are awaiting a clarification in a writing from SEBI officials. So once we receive any clarification on this particular point, we will be very happy to provide necessary clarification to our custodian participant as well.
But when will the DIS format be issued, as it will have major impact when client will be submitting instructions on pay-in day?
So currently, the depository participant or brokers can use the existing forms which are available for POA, like Form 13 and Form 37, till the time the DIS related changes are being executed. But we are in the process of issuing the necessary guidelines in respect of a DIS changes. So NSDL policy team is already working on that.
Rishiji, your question, please. Rishiji. Roshni ji, your question, please. Roshni ji, your question.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to know what would be the amount of stamp that is required in the state of Maharashtra.
So that is, ma'am, you need to internally check with your compliance and legal team, and then based on that, you need to fix that amount.
Okay.
Ketan ji, your question, please. Yagnesh ji, your question, please.
Yeah, I'm Yagnesh from Standard Chartered Bank. Yogesh, I have one query. Yeah, the files which that will get uploaded in the EDPM system for paying transaction, will it have contain the POA ID and the DDPI ID while uploading those transactions?
So currently there is a provision that, for example, the account is opened after 1st September and the pay-in related obligation needs to be executed. So in that case, the only DDPI needs to be executed and the transaction will be executed using DDPI. So there is a provision in the file format to mention the DDPI ID, which is being mapped to the client demat account. So you can execute the transaction using the file format by mentioning the DDPI ID.
Okay, and the POA ID, and those clients which are having POA ID, that has to be incorporated in the file, or it will go as it is without the POA ID?
So in respect of the existing clients wherein client is not revoked the power of attorney, so you can continue with your existing practice without any changes in the file.
Okay. And my second query was, sir, that only that the physical DS का जो file form जो format है जो client will be submitting for paying.
वो सर वो मैंने already cover कर लिया था पहले question में. So NSDL policy team is working on that. Till that time, you can continue using the Form 13 and Form 37, whichever is the applicable.
Okay. Sir, for DDPI format, जो DDPI format issue हुआ है, do you require any additional information that like all the holders should sign the form, or brokers for broker signature or pool account details of the broker, all needs to be mentioned in the form? Because SEBI has given the plain format, there is no additional details are asked. But since this is a replacement of the POA document, so do you require like pool details, broker signatures, or everything, or all holders should sign the DDPI format?
So that will be based on the, yeah, this is very valid question. So today, whatever the care you are taking at the time of, signing the POA related information. So SEBI has prescribed the Annexure A, wherein they have mentioned these 2 points like 1.2.1 and 1.2.2, which will be given as a part of a DDPI form. But our policy team is working on that particular form, which will be, intimated to our participant and broker very soon, which will cover certain additional information as well. So we will, separately informing you those details.
Okay. And for when we be creating the DDPI ID, what documentation needs to be collected from the broker?
Only DDPI annexure, no? That has been prescribed by SEBI.
From the broker,
From
for creation of DDPI ID in the DPM system.
So when we are creating DDPI ID for a broker like POID, what documentation we need to collect from the broker for creation of the DDPI ID basically, because no such guidelines was mentioned in the circular.
That is your internal, arrangement. Today you are creating a POID based on the certain information provided by the broker. So while creation of a DDPI ID, the broker can give similar kind of information to DP for creation of a DDPI ID, because the field wise, technically the fields of a POA module and DDPI module is one and the same. We have changed the POA with a DDPI. In that matter, the name of the signatories, the name of a DDPI, it is like a corporate POA only. So whatever details today you are taking in respect of a POA, so that can be taken in respect of a DDPI as well.
Okay, so for if existing client who is having already POA with us, if existing client is providing DDPI to us, form भर के देता है, तो our जो existing POA flag है उसका, that has to be keep active, and new DDPI flag needs to be activated, because we need to process the other transactions which are not mentioned in the DDPI. So we will keep the existing POA flag active for those clients who will submit the DDPI post 1st September.
So if for example, if we did not receive any clarification from SEBI in respect of covering mutual fund related or tender offer related transaction before 31st of August, so in that case, you can continue with the power of attorney already being registered in the demat account for execution of a transaction other than 1.2.1 and 1.2.2. But for execution of this transaction, you need to mandatorily take the DDPI after 1st September.
Correct. But after 1st September, DDPI is mandatory for the new account opening. If client, correct. So for existing client, it is not mandatory. We can continue with the existing POA till the time client is.
This point we already covered under our presentation slide also, wherein we spoke about the existing POA can continue as it is till the time client revokes the same.
Okay.
Sureshji, your question, please. Sureshji.
Yeah, hi. I already put my question in the QA. I was asking because since e-sign is allowed on the DDPI format, so if any customer is getting onboarded mid of the night, and that e-sign will be done in the account opening form as well as the DDPI, which will have a date and time stamp, and definitely we would be able to pay the stamp duty next day. So will that be valid?
I'm not able to get this question.
So suppose, yeah, who was explaining? Should I explain again?
Yeah, Suresh, please.
Okay, so I was saying e-sign is allowed on DDPI, right? And if customer, because this online process, customer onboarding process is online with all the brokers. So any customer can come at 7 o'clock in the night or 8 o'clock in the night. Okay, whenever customer is doing the onboarding part and he is signing the account opening form and DDPI through Aadhaar, which is e-signed, which has a date and time stamp at what time customer has e-signed the account opening form and DDPI, right? And we get those form next day for the DVU as a verification. So we would be paying the stamp duty of those customers who had registered themselves previous day. So suppose second को customer आया and we paid the stamp duty on third.
सूरज जी, आज आप power of attorney के लिए क्या कर रहे हैं? Because this same challenge is there in respect of POA also, right?
So I believe, I'm not sure about the current POA का, but I believe since this POA is physical in the nature, जहाँ पे wet signature is required, तो customer का POA उठाया और उसी दिन वो stamp duty भरते हैं, and it is mapped to the trading account. But यहाँ पे now we are talking about digital signature for on DDPI. तो digital signature तो रात को भी हो जाएगा.
Means today also, online account openings are getting, processed. So in that case is also, so basically,
नहीं, आज क्या होता है ना, आज क्या
basically it is your internal arrangement how the, you will consider the e-sign done in respect of the KYC process and account opening process, and how the stamping will be done. If the
नहीं, so
stamping,
my point is simple कि 1 तारीख को क्लस्टरमैन का ई साइन हुआ है DDPI पे और उसका स्टैम्प ड्यूटी 2nd को भरा है. Is this valid?
No, frankly speaking, I don't have clarity on this point, but we can, answer this query offline. I don't have clarity right now on this particular point. Yeah. So I'll be, discussing this particular point with my compliance and legal team, and I would be able to answer this query.
Okay, fine. No. And I have one more question.
Say hi. We do have one more question. So DI slip. So do you require to fill up the UCCI number?
Currently, for DDPA implementation, UCC details are not mandatory. But yes, going forward for implementation of a mandatory block thing, the UCC detail will be seek from the client, broker, and DP. So at that time, the UCC detail needs to be, included in the DIS format.
So one more question we have. So for example, you said for existing customer, someone doesn't want to continue for a POA, then he wanted to activate for a DDPI. Okay. So what would be the process? Is there any offline process? Is there any online process?
No, you can, take a request from the client, whichever is the deemed fit, and you can revoke that POA from the demat account, and then you can follow the DDPA mapping process.
So is there process? Do you have a process currently? So I'm from Yes Bank. We have not received any process regarding that.
So that's the reason I am saying that you can take a request from the client for, revocation of the existing POA, and then you can map the DDPI based on the annexure prescribed by SEBI officials.
Okay. And one more question we have that the mapping regarding, for example, the request we are giving, do you require an identifier for it, whether it is a POI, whether it is a DDPI?
You can refer to the file format. We have already made the provision in those file format wherein there is an identification, whether it is a DDPI or whether it is a power of attorney.
So you require two identifier, right?
Sir, I request you to please refer to the file format wherein in the comment section we have already given the clarification in respect of the static codes which we are, seeking at the time of the DDPI implementation.
Okay. Thank you.
Santosh ji, your question, please. Santosh Kumar ji. Govindaraj ji, your question, please.
Hi, sir. Myself, Govindaraj. I have one doubt. Sir, I'm checking in local DPM to create that corporate POA. That I'm not seeing any field in the name of DDPA or something. What is the difference to create this corporate POA?
Sir, in our previous circular, we have mentioned that the local DPM release for creation of DDPI will be provided at the weekend. So currently we have not, implemented that release on the local DPM system yet. So we have given the EOD of today. So most probably tomorrow we are trying to, give that particular release on the local DPM system, wherein brokers and depository participant can create the DDPA ID and do the mapping in the client account.
Okay, sir. Fine.
Yagnish ji, your question, please.
Thank you, sir. Sir, does NSDL will have any validation built in DPM or EDPM, where if suppose by mistake if we provide non-DPI transaction in non-DPI transaction we provide DDPI ID or DDPI transaction में अगर POID आता है does system NSDL application have validation to reject those transactions, or it will accept the
NSDL
transaction?
NSDL will have necessary validations to check the client and DDPI mapping at the time of instruction processing.
हाँ नहीं एग्री, बट वो रिजेक्ट हो जाएगा कि जहाँ पे सपोज हम लोग कोई एमटीएफ कर रहे हैं, एमटीएफ का ट्रांजेक्शन अपलोड कर रहे हैं और वहाँ पे डीडीपीआई आईडी मेंशन्ड है, सो वैलिडेशन तो है बट डीडीपीआई आईडी वो मैपिंग भी रहेगा क्लाइंट को, बट वहाँ पे पीओ आईडी आना चाहिए इंस्टेड ऑफ डीडीपीआई आईडी, तो हमने वो गलती से डीडीपीआई आईडी अपलोड होता भी है
So that is you need to build those internal control at your end, right?
हाँ नहीं एग्री, so that's what I'm checking, whether we need to build in control or NSDL will have that control.
We have issued necessary guidelines to you in advance so that necessary restrictions or the validations to be built at your end as well, because we have taken utmost care to validate all the possible transaction based on which will be processed based on the DDPI ID.
Correct. Okay. Thanks. And because POID का जो clarification
necessary controls will be placed in the system as well as in the inspection of NSDL checklist as well.
Okay. No issue. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay.
Priyaji, your question, please.
Yeah, actually, I have 3 questions. I'll start with first one. I just wanted to know whether DDPI can be obtained physically also, right? Just we are obtaining POA.
Yes.
Okay. And the second one is this MTF pledge transaction would be under the margin pledge, and for that DDPI need to be obtained or POA can be.
Yeah.
So
Hello.
In my presentation also I covered this point wherein I said that we have represented this particular matter to SEBI.
Okay.
But we have not got any clarification. But while discussing with SEBI, there are certain points which have being discussed, stating that today also margin pledge circular doesn't specify anything related
on the MTF pledge.
Related to allowing a MTF pledge based on a POID. So today also brokers, if they are following the practice of uploading the margin pledge based on a POID, so they can continue doing so with the use of a DDPI ID as well. Why brokers or depository participant are seeking a special clarification from SEBI, because there is no specific mention in the margin pledge circular regarding to MTF and POA based upload.
Correct. So you are trying to say that in both the ways we can do it, through POA also, through DDPI also.
No, I am saying that we have sought the necessary clarification from SEBI in respect of MTF, but we have not received any clarification as of now.
So are we awaiting their replies?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll get back on that thing afterwards, right?
Yes, we will be issuing a separate.
Because sir, I have even mailed all these queries on the helpdesk ID of CDSL.
No, madam. So what we are saying that we have already taken up this matter with SEBI.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. The last question is whether this MF transaction, right, entitlement, tender offer, all this will be under the purview of DDPI, right?
Madam, we have already covered this point under my presentation, wherein we have said that the mutual fund transactions and tender offer related transaction, we have asked the permission from SEBI to allow those kind of a transaction under DDPI, but we have not yet received any feedback from SEBI.
Here also we are awaiting revert.
Yes.
Sorry, sir. Actually, I missed the presentation initially. That is why I'm asking all this.
No problem. No problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Nigalji, your question, please. Nigalji. Amishji, your question, please. Amishji.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, this is Amish Gandhi here from SCSI. So my question is this, say for example, if a customer who is newly getting onboarded from the 1st of September and he has opted for the DDPI. Now, as per the DDPI options, that the customer is compulsory from the 1st of September when he start trading, as mandatory for him to for us to give his UCC details from the day 1, or we need to have or this is to be required to be submitted from the block mechanism perspective from 14th of November.
So we have issued our operating guidelines. So wherein we have stated that for implementation of a DDPI related changes, UCC details are not mandatory. So we will be deriving details from the UCC database. Can others please mute their panel, because there is a echo. Wispy, can you please speak?
Hello.
Yogesh, please try again.
Yeah. So what we are saying that for implementation of a DDPI related changes effective from 1st September, UCC details are not mandatory, because we are going to derive this details from our database. But you rightly pointed out, at the time of a implementation of a mandatory block mechanism thing, we will be seeking this details mandatorily, UCC detail, TMID, exchange ID from the broker and depository participant. Amiji, I hope I have clarified your query.
Amiji, you on mute. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, sorry, extremely sorry. So I just wanted to understand. Yeah, thank you so much for your valuable input. But having said that, I just wanted to understand that whenever this particular customer is starting his trades from the 1st September. So this is for the new customer. What about the existing customers who have given us the POA? And when we say that in future that he revokes the POA, but having been said that the revocation is a separate process altogether. However, he gives us the DDPI new documentations for the existing customers. Having said that, the customers who has given us the new DDPI document, the POA will still remain in the systems as ticked mark. So for them also the procedure will remain same as it is, right?
No, once the client gives you the revocation request, then you need to demark the POA client mapping, right? So that needs to be done in the depository system as well, wherein client has given you the request for revoking his power of attorney.
Unmute yourself, please.
Revocation means that revocation as a process, customer has to give some consent that I want to revoke my existing POA and I'm attaching this DDPI, or when he gives us the DDPI basis which we should take as a consent of the customers that he would like to revoke the he would like to revoke the POA.
So that is your internal arrangement and process inlined, internally, how you want to take a request from the client for revocation of a POA. So
yeah,
we have not specified any, defined process for revocation of a power of attorney. You can take a request, a plain request from the client, and you can do the revocation from the system.
Okay, so I just asked this question from the future audit perspective. So tomorrow it should not happen that the customers who is having the existing POA and have given us the DDPI, and we have unticked that basis which we do not have the consent letter, but yes, he has given DDPI. So there is no specific rule which states us that we untick the POA and we accept the DDPI.
No, but I think there is a clear guidelines that you need to get a request from the client for a revocation of a power of attorney. So revocation of a power of attorney and addition of a DDPI are two different things.
Okay.
I hope I have clarified this.
Yes, you have clarified it. So when we say that, hello?
Yeah, please.
Hello. So when we say that, so basically what I've understood is, so UCC is not mandatory as soon as the customers opt for the DDPI from the 1st September. As soon as he opt for the block mechanism only from the 14th of November, then only the UCC details are mandatory.
It is not an option at the client. It will be mandatory for all. So UCC detail has to be provided by default. Whenever we will be implementing the changes in respect of a mandatory block mechanism.
Okay, and that is perspective from the 14th November and not from the 1st September, right, sir?
Yes, right.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Gaganji, your question, please.
So, sir, for regarding the UCC details, will the UCC details be mandatory for all market transfers, or will they be mandatory only for those transactions, those early paying transactions where block mechanism has been opted?
So currently, the SEBI has issued only circular related to the EPI transaction, wherein the block will be made mandatory. But within a week time, SEBI is going to issue other regulation for all pay-in related transfers, wherein the block mechanism will be made mandatory. So in that case, the UCC detail will be required for all market transfers whether it is a EPI transaction or non-EPI based transaction.
Okay, sir. So second question is for transfers between the portfolio manager, PMS, and end clients. Will UCC be required because the flow of these transactions is a little bit different? So
So
from end client.
we have sought the necessary clarification from SEBI in respect of a PMS, and we have tried to we have requested them to exempt custodian clients from the ambit of the block mechanism. Let's see what we get from the SEBI in respect of that particular representation.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rishiji, your question, please. Rishiji. Digalji, your question, please. Digal Shah, your question. Please unmute yourself, Digal Shah. One more question: whether we have to create new POA
Hello.
ID? Yeah, Digalji,
Hello.
boliye, please. Haji, boliye. Digalji, your
Yeah,
question, please.
yeah,
Digal
Yogesh.
Shah,
Yeah,
your
Yogesh. Yeah, I'm audible?
Yes.
Yes,
Please
sir, very
unmute
much.
yourself, Digal Shah.
Yeah, I'm audible.
Yes,
Hello.
Haji, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So
whether we have to create new POA ID?
yeah. So we have a query that if my customer is a MTF customer and he is trading through a DDP or a block mechanism, and there is the net obligation across product is zero. Suppose if he is querying of his position is MTF, and from a demat he is purchasing some stock. So my net obligation will be zero. So how this handling will be done?
Sir, frankly speaking, this is bouncer for me. I have not understood your question.
Suppose if I am carrying a MTF position, which was an historical, let's say I have opened an account with block mechanism through DDPI. I have created one position in MTF of 100 Axis Bank, and I have the same stock lying in my demat account, which I have squared up in non-MTF product by marking a block mechanism. So my exchange obligation will be zero.
So, sir,
Hello?
I will just try to summarize in the depository transaction related area, which I understand basically. So, what we are saying that the clearing corporations are going to upload the client level net obligation on a daily basis for only sell transactions. Okay, and on the basis of that, the depository participants are required to execute the transaction in respect of their net obligation. So the transaction and the obligation will be cross-verified, and if the matching obligation is found, then only the securities will be debited from the client account and given to the CC for the paying purpose. I try to
But
cover the
in this case, the net obligation will be zero, na?
sir, if the net obligation is zero, then why the instruction will be executed for block mechanism?
Because he has squared up for MTF transaction, which the pledge was created for the open e-margin position MTF product, and the normal cash.
I think we are going into detail in respect of the trading and that area, which I would not be in a position to comment. But I can explain you the process wherein the demat related transactions will be executed using DDPI or block mechanism, and which will be validated with the obligation. So CC will be always uploading the client level net obligation, and on the basis of that, the instruction will be executed in the depository system to that extent only, and on the basis of which the matching will be done with the obligation.
Okay. So means across product will not be allowed, I think, as of now.
So if the client level net obligation is zero, in that case, there will be no obligation which will be provided by the clearing corporation. In that case, if the account transfer instruction for paying purpose is executed, in that case, the instruction will fail.
Okay, understood. And what we have understood that PPT, there was a point that suppose if I am my net sell obligation is 100 through DDPI, and in demat account there is a shares of only 25. So what you have told that partial shares can be executed. So
Partial,
what will
partial.
happen if I give?
Yeah, please, sir, continue.
Yeah, please, Yogesh, please.
No, sir, please
Yeah.
continue.
So what will happen if I am giving you a sell instruction or through DDP of 100 and the shares available in demat account in 75 only, the opposite leg. So 75 will execute or it will fail.
So the 75 will execute as a partially triggering, but in that case, you will not be able to get the EPI benefit. So that's the reason what we are saying that for receiving the EPI benefit, whatever that transaction that you are processing, you have to ensure that much quantity is available in the demat account at the time of execution of an instruction only, so that we can give that EPI detail to the clearing corporation at the interval of 10 minutes, so that the client level margin benefit can be provided.
Okay. 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 Thanks, Yogesh. That's from my side.
Thank you, sir.
Suresh, your question, please.
Hi, Yogesh. This is Xavier from S Bank. So we will implement a DDPI post 31st August, right? So before that, what we are doing, we taking a POA, right? So certain customer have, for example, out of 100 customer, might be 50 customer doesn't provide that POA same day. So if they are providing a POA post September 1st, so will the system accept that?
So currently there will be no restriction in respect of a mapping of a power of attorney in a demat account, because we are yet to receive certain clarification from SEBI on which we can decide whether the POA can be totally needs to be restricted in the map to the demat account. So to answer to your query, yes, as of now, the POA can be mapped to the demat account, but on the basis of that POA, you cannot execute the transaction specified under clauses of 1.2.1 and 1.2.2.
So what is that exactly? Can you clarify that 1.2 and 0.2?
Sir, those clauses are already mentioned in the SEBI circular, which are related to pay-in obligation transactions and margin pledge related transactions.
Okay, I'll go through that. Thank you so much, I guess. Thank you.
Okay.
Bhakti ji, your question, please. Bhakti ji. Bhakti ji?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Sir, I would like to ask whether we need to create a new PO ID apart from the DDPI, or existing PO ID is valid for the new PO obtained for the minimum purpose, like other than paying or margin pledge obligation.
So the existing POA can continue, because as you rightly pointed out, for these two clauses, the DDPI will be executed after 1st of September, and for other purposes, the existing POA can work.
Okay.
Rishi ji, your question, please. Rishi Pal ji.
हेलो
Yes.
सर, ऋषि मल्टीपैक कैपेसिटी।
हाँ जी।
हेलो।
हाँ जी, बोलिए सर।
हाँ सर, मेरे को ना क्या है कि जैसे हम कोई प्रीपेन लगाएंगे, क्लाइंट की फाइल चलाई हमने। हेलो।
हाँ जी बोलिए सर, आप क्वेश्चन बोलिए सर।
हाँ, अगर हम प्रीपेन की फाइल चलाते हैं और उसके बाद जो उसकी रिवर्ट फाइल आती है, तो जैसे हम नॉर्मल चलाते हैं, नॉर्मल में प्रीपेन लगाते हैं, तो हम उसको जब अपनी बैक ऑफिस में फाइल चलाएंगे तो पता लग जाता है कि कितने शेयर हमारे पेंडिंग है, कितने क्लाइंट पेंडिंग में रह गए, मतलब जो कि देने हैं। तो अर्ली पेन में जब हम ये वाली फाइल चलाएंगे तो उसमें जो फाइल वो कहाँ से उठ लेंगे?
जितना मुझे समझ में आया, मैं I would like to explain. So today the securities will be blocked in the client account. The shares are not actually getting transferred to the CM pool account. So if you want to check your pay-in obligation, so for that matter, EDPM और IDS पे हमारे EDS और block mechanism का export दिया गया है. Using that export, you can get an idea कि आपके कितने सारे क्लाइंट्स ने आपके फेवर में सिक्योरिटीज ब्लॉक करके रखी है और कौन से मार्केट टाइप और सेटलमेंट नंबर के लिए।
जी।
वो एक्सपोर्ट आप आपके बैक ऑफिस में लेके यू कैन चेक योर पे इन ऑब्लिगेशन।
वो हमारी ईडी पे से देनी पड़ेगी
सर? नहीं समझा सर आपकी बात।
मैं वो डीपीएम फाइल्स कहाँ से लेनी पड़ेगी? एफएलटी टाइप की होती है
वो आईडीएस पे है, एनएसडीएल के आईडीएस के पोर्टल पे और एनएसडीएल की ईडीपीएम पोर्टल पे डीपी के लिए और ब्रोकर के लिए दोनों को हम लोग ने अवेलेबल करके रखी है सर।
जी, ओके। ठीक है, थैंक यू सर।
Mahesh, your question, please.
Hi, this is Pratik Sinha from Master Capital Services Limited. My question is basically those who are already using the Power POID, will be continued from 1st September onwards, or we have to make a separate POID for giving the facility of buyback and MTF?
The same POID can be continued.
So how can we differentiate between the earlier POID and the latest one?
No, the purpose of DDPI is that the transaction mentioned in the clause 1.2.1 and 1.2.2, those only transactions shall be allowed through DDPI. So in respect of the new clients open after 1st September, you for execution of this transfer, like pay-in related transfers and margin page related transfers, you need to take a DDPI for execution of such transfer. And for other transactions, you can continue with your existing POID.
Actually, required some more clarification, because I have a POID and it give the facilitate to margin obligation as well as for the buyback and the MTF. So from 1st September onwards,
what I'm saying that if we don't receive any clarification from SEBI till the implementation of DDPI guidelines, in that case, you will be able to execute only pay-in related transactions and margin-based related transactions using DDPI, right?
Right.
So you can continue with your existing POA to execute the transaction other than these two clauses.
Okay, so I have to make on client controlling instead of POID controlling, right?
Sir, I am saying that for DDPI, on the basis of DDPI ID, you can execute this two type of a transaction.
No, I am just raising my point. Suppose today there is a POID which facilitate all the features of POID, right? So from 1st September, only DDPI will be applicable for margin obligation and margin pledge, market
Pay-in
obligation and margin pledge.
Yes.
So how can we differentiate as a client giving the DDPI, those who have not given the DDPI, those who have already given the POID, and suppose I'm the market, given the client given the market obligation in the favor of broker. So how a broker can differentiate between the earlier POID and the DDPI? Because
So,
DDPI
at
is
the time of a creation of a DDPI ID, we have given the separate identifier as a D.
Okay.
Okay. On the basis of that, you can identify this is a DDPI ID which has been marked in the demat account, and that export you can take it to your back office system. So, for example, Yogesh Parve has opened the account after 1st September, and I have mapped the DDPI ID in that particular demat account. So, this detail will be made available in the local DPM system of NSDL, and that can be taken to your back office system for your internal check and balances.
Okay. Thank you.
One more question, raise hand. JPG, your question, please.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thanks for this superb conversation. So just one second, don't have any POA of any of our clients. We are simply a broker firm. So do you have a way to worry for DDPI or something?
No, if you are not, operating on the basis of power of attorney, so there are, various options like EDS. EDS is one of the options. There are many brokers who today, deal with the EDS facility. So they can continue with their existing practice. There will be no change in respect of a
So
EDS.
we don't have to worry about that, no?
Yes, right.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I think so. We have covered all the questions. There are no raised hands at the moment. So, Yogesh, before we conclude, Yogeshji, yourself and Paragji would like to say a few, closing remarks to the members on both the topics, please.
Yeah, I would like to thank BBF and all the brokers for patient hearing and understanding the topic, which will be benefit to all the brokers and depository participants as an industry. And I have tried my level best to touch upon certain important factors of DDPA and block mechanism, and I have sincerely tried to answer to the queries raised by the participants. But if there are still certain queries which are unanswered, so we would like to answer those queries offline also. And I request Parag to say a few words in respect of today's webinar.
So thank you first of all to the Brokers Forum for inviting us, and Yogesh has already covered the entire topic in as much detail as possible. So hope we were able to answer all your queries and give you some good insights on DDPI as well as the block mechanism implementation which we are going ahead with.
Thank you. Thank you once again, team NSDL, Prashant ji, Yogesh bhai, Parag bhai, for your valuable time and giving not only the highlights, but going in depth and clarifying a lot of doubts and clarity. Just a suggestion, for a few of our members have requested your PPT. So whenever you're free, if you can share it, so we can make it live on our website. Along with this program will also be available on our BBF YouTube channel. For those whoever have missed it, can always come to BBF channel and view it. On that note, thank you once again, Yogesh ji and Parag ji, for your valuable time. Indeed appreciate. Have a great weekend. Thank